Welcome to today's tutorial. We're going to be doing a value study in color. If you take a look at this diagram here, you can notice the light source coming in from the top left. We have our highlight on the top left of the pear. We have light tones in the middle. We have a mid-tone. And then we have a core shadow in the bottom right. That's the darkest area of the object. We also have a cast shadow, which is on the table. These are all the different values when we do a value study. And we're going to be kind of getting a grasp on this before we look at color. If you look at the color wheel here, I'm giving you a simple example of complementary colors, which are opposite on the color wheel. So for instance, red and green, completely opposite on the spectrum, and they are considered complementary. And we're going to use these today to create contrast, to create eye-catching color, to create tones and values in our painting. And I also want to reference that when you combine these colors, any opposite colors, you can create any neutral tone. And so we're going to be creating some neutrals as well today. So to get started for this, you need a piece of sturdy watercolor paper. I have all those items that you're going to need today. They're listed in the description of this video. And go ahead and section off your paper into 4 different sections here. Now, if you want to simplify this particular thing, you're going to just split it in half and you're going to do just 2 value studies instead of the 4. But if you feel up for it, by all means do 4 if you feel like that would be a great challenge for you. Once we have those sectioned off into 4, we're going to go ahead and begin drawing some pairs in each one. You're going to need a mechanical pencil, perhaps an eraser, and I have those referenced as well. These are some of my favorite things I like to use. This is a great mechanical drawing pencil, comfortable, easy to use. I have a reference photo here for you just to kind of give you an idea of what we're trying to achieve today and what the shape of a pear looks like. But basically, we're going to draw a pear, just a simple pear shape in each box. And I want you to vary the shape of the pear in each one so that they have slight variance. Some are going to be shorter and fatter. Some are going to be taller and thinner. Now, if you notice, I'm not working in one long continuous line. I'm actually working in little tiny sections at a time. And this kind of creates the ultimate shape that you're going to want to achieve. So it's kind of broken up into visual planes, and we're going to add a little stem to the top. So just go ahead and do that in each box. Really just doing a study today, and this is just to really get a lot of things going in your brain, in your hands, everything working together. Okay, now we are ready to mix up some of our paint for our palette. Here are some of the colors you're going to need today. These are all acrylic, Liquitex basics, whatever paint you have available, but I'm going to be using some cad yellow, cadmium red, some blue, mid-tone blue, whatever you have on hand, white, and magenta. We're going to begin by mixing up these paints, a few different colors, just to get things going and have them available. I usually like to have my palette over to the right-hand side next to my art, and then make sure you have a cup of water up to the top, and of course some paper towels. You're going to need to be wiping your brush quite frequently for this. Okay, let's begin by starting with some white. We're going to start in the highlight area of the pear. As you remember from our tonal study picture that I showed you earlier, there's a highlight over there, and this just kind of gets the ground wet and highlighted already, so we know that's over there. We can work with blending some of the paint up for that particular area. Okay, and now I'm just going to go ahead and mix up a few different colors. Let's go ahead and make up some green by mixing up our yellow and our blue together. We are going to be doing various different colors on these pears. They're not going to be completely green pears. They're going to have a lot of red and magenta. It's by no means realistic, but we're trying to overall achieve value using the color. And so you need to look at the colors as what is light and what is dark. And that is what we're going to be using to determine color placement in this particular painting. Okay, let's just leave that there, and let's go ahead and mix up some other colors so we just have them available. Of course, always wash your brush really well, blot it out when you're mixing. Let's mix our orange, like an orange tone up. So by mixing the yellow and the red together, creating kind of an orange. And I'm gonna lay down the orange as my light color. If you remember when we referenced earlier, we have our highlight, our light, our mid-tone, and then our core shadow. So this is going to be considered my light color in the middle of this particular pear. I want you to make sure each pear is slightly different. So where the mid-tone, the light in this one might be this orange, on another it might be pure yellow, or it might be a green. So each one's going to have slight variation. And then go ahead and put in some more red tones for the darker mid tones for that one. If you notice, I'm just working in sections, so I'm not going to paint the whole pear at once. I want you to think about this as sections. And this kind of trains your eye to be able to jump around, to be able to be more loose with things. So don't get hung up too much on one particular pear. Now, after I painted this top right pear, I realized that I was kind of doing the opposite of exactly what I told you to do, which is to put some of the darker tones over to the core shadow. But that one I kind of did the opposite. I was just really playing with color. So this is actually a lighter tone than what's in the middle there, but I am going to go back over that later. So if you want to mix up a darker tone here, perhaps more of a red, throw some blue in there with it. You can mix a little bit of a darker tone for the core shadow area. There's also something called reflected light. So if you look at the reference photo in the bottom right, you're going to see right next to that core shadow, there's light reflected up. So it's basically light that bounces up into that shadow area. And so that's something you can consider as well for this. And so the top right one that I'm explaining, I kind of messed up, but in reality, I can keep that value there for my reflected light. I'm just mixing up various tones here, so just really have fun playing and mixing color. So I just got kind of a magenta, a little bit of red and white into it, and that's going to be my darker values here on this particular pair. So if you notice, I'm not doing any one pair the same. Try to work in sections. I can't really explain to you what that looks like except by you watching what I'm doing here, which is creating little areas of paint on each one. I'm also just going ahead and throwing my horizon line in there, and that's just going to be where the table hits the pear, so we can later kind of gauge where our cast shadow is going to be. So our cast shadow is on the right side of the pear on the table. So I'm just I'm mixing up a blue with a little bit of red here, and I'm creating just a gentle cast shadow. It does not have to be any particular shape, but you do need to start at the base of the pear and then work towards your right. Sometimes there's a little bit creeping out to the left bottom hand of a pear, but overall it's going to be cast to the right in varying shapes. And actually, with each pair, I'm going to make the cast shadow look slightly different. So some of them might go further to the right, some might go more towards the front. So just have fun playing with what different cast shadows might look like. Going ahead and mixing up some blue and red together. So we're getting kind of like a purple indigo type of value here. Slightly darker on this one. And this shadow is actually going to go off the page. I'm also kind of creating a little bit of a cup around the basin of the pear. So this is a quick painting. Don't worry too much about perfection. I don't want perfection for this. This is a study. So just quickly throw in dark value for your cast shadow. I'm going to use the same value that I used for the cast shadow, and I'm going to add that here on the right side of the pear where you would see kind of a core shadow or the darkest value on the pear. So just kind of work blending that into the dark areas of where the pear would have the darkest value. Now, part of the reason why we're using only 4 colors for this, I'm sorry, 5 colors actually. So this is considered a limited palette. And the reason that we're doing this is to create more of a harmonious feeling between all the colors. Sometimes if you work with too many colors that are already mixed up for you, it can become not harmonious. So let's just try to achieve that as well today. So if you are looking at that reference photo to the bottom right, you're seeing that there's this dark value that also can pop in various areas on a pear, just depending on, the shape of a pear. A pear is not perfectly smooth, so it's going to have those lumps and bumps. And so I think that's the interesting part of this is that you're going to play around with the imperfections of the fruit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start laying some green in now on top of all the red and magentas that we put in there, just to give the overall sense of a pear. I'm going to mix up a few different shades of green. So I added some white to this side so that for the highlight area that's a really pale green coming in. Remember, I'm not copying this reference photo to the bottom that I have. I'm not really copying it. I'm just kind of coming up with my own. It's just more of a like a reference to say, okay, well, I could do this, I could do this. So go ahead and kind of mix up varying shades of green by mixing with white, or you could mix with darker shades of blue, add a bit of red in there. Remember, for contrasting colors, make neutrals. So if you want to make more of a neutral green, go ahead and start putting red into that green. I want to encourage you to pause this video at any point if you need to slow down, if you feel like you need to mix up some colors, whatever you might need to do. I'm mixing up a darker tone here with some green and red and a little bit of that, more of the blue. And I'm just throwing in some darker areas. I'm also adding that particular dark shade for the stem, just because that is perceived as a darker tone. Now, if you take your eyes and you squint really hard at something, you can see value really, really well. You can see your lights, you can see your darks and your mid-range. So I want to encourage you as well, for this painting or for any painting that you're trying to work on, squint your eyes and see how that helps you. See if it helps you to achieve more value in your painting. I have a bit of a smaller brush here, so now I'm going to go ahead and throw those horizon lines in on the rest of my boxes. I'm going to go ahead and mix up some magenta and some white with a touch of red into it. A little bit of a blue as well, just a little bit of a darker magenta. Because I want to start throwing some of that color in there. I really love that magenta. And I'm going to use that for some of my darker core shadow values as well on some of my pears. So just begin working from pair to pair, just like I'm doing, not feeling like you have to copy me exactly. This is your painting. Yours is going to be slightly varied from mine depending on colors you like and all of that. But in general, what I want you to accomplish is working from light to dark, working in sections, mixing up color that is a range of tonal value. And so just have fun exploring how to mix. If you're a beginner artist, this is going to be something that's very core value for learning how to paint. If you are an experienced artist, this is just a fun study for you to do. Okay, so now I'm just really working to start covering the pears in different green tones here. Kind of started that earlier, but I'm just going to go ahead and make it more apparent on each of them where the green, light green highlight is and the different shades of green. And you might be wondering, well, why did we start with orange first? Why did we start with yellows and magentas? Well, because when you paint with acrylic, you really want to have lots of layers. It just builds up value, it builds up tone, and if you've noticed, they can have a slight transparency to them, even though they are an opaque medium, meaning you can't see through them. There are areas where you can see through. So if you notice, if I use only a small amount of paint, I'm able to see the color underneath, especially at the top right when you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And it really just helps to build up texture, to build up value in each of your pieces of fruit here. Okay, let's go ahead and begin painting in the foreground or the table area. And this is a really fun part where you get to just pick whatever colors you want to use. I do recommend doing a lighter color on the left side of the table, and then we're going to kind of transition to darker tones over towards the right. So add some white into whatever you're mixing up. And this one I have some kind of a grayish blue here, and I'm mixing white into it. And I really want you to put a lot of paint on your brush for this part. I want you to be able to kind of mix colors almost directly into the paper. And that creates just a really loose brush look, which we're kind of going for in this painting. We're not going for perfection. And so just feel free to have fun with this part. Mix up whatever colors you like. So I'm just actually, normally I'd mix the white over on the palette, but in this case, I'm just putting it directly onto the paper. And then that way you can see the brush strokes really well in there, and it creates that loose look. So have fun with this part. Work with different colors. I'm also going to be throwing in another one, throwing some yellow in, because I feel like yellow is such a happy color. I want more yellow for this. So whatever colors you're really fond of. And then as we work, you'll notice that I'm going to throw in darker tones, darker colors towards the top. So where above the horizon line, it's going to be darker than what the table is. And part of this is because we really need the contrast between the darkness of the wall against where the highlight of the pear is going to be. And it really helps the highlight area to stand out in that way. Now after I painted this upper right section here in a kind of a mid-tone neutrals, I realized that I really needed more contrast up there. So some of them I ended up going back over, which is fine because, you know, it just creates, like I said earlier, more layers, more interest in the painting to have more color in there. So I went back in, I also added more highlights. I added some yellow into the white for that highlight area on most all of them. I really feel like the yellow with the white just adds such a pop of light there. if you've already noticed by now, this painting is taking quite a few layers to really achieve what I want. And so there's no pressure here to do anything close to what I'm doing here, because I'm really just, I feel like every bit of decision that I'm making is, it's just very personal to what you want. So as you can tell, I'm really went ahead and I'm adding various tones of color. I'm throwing blues in there. I'm throwing yellow, whites in there over for the highlight. So it's really just taking on a lot of variation as I continue to paint. And so that's what I want for you to do. I want you to kind of learn how to evolve a painting, how to make it change and shift into what you're wanting in the moment. And so really just have fun playing with this and not focus on making it look exactly like mine or with any level of, perfectionism to this. Okay, so I'm using my complementary colors. I mixed up a dark brown here, and I'm just adding it back to the base of the stem here, and we're really finishing this up. I think it looks great, and I hope you guys enjoyed today. Keep working on it if you choose to, but overall we are done. Good job, guys. See you next time.